It was always the Jags.
It's always the Jags. It's always the Jags.
Always the Jags.
Welcome into Always the Jags. It is your host, King Will, and today I'm going to take a look at the Jaguars schedule, and I'm going to give you my record predictions for our 2025 Jacksonville Jaguars. The schedule has been out for a minute, and I preferred, I wanted to take some time to, let the training camp stuff happen. Sometimes there's a few more signings after free agency and all of that kind of cools down before we can really make an accurate prediction. And I think us bringing in Emmanuel Ogbah and Dewan Smoot, those couple of moves do make a difference in my schedule pickings. Those aren't franchise-altering guys, but they do address areas that we were weak, right? And so I'm going to go through the schedule one by one. I'm going to tell you what games I think we're winning, what games I think we're not. I'm going to tell you some of my flip games that I think could end up going either way, but my official prediction for them, and whether or not your Jacksonville Jaguars will make the playoffs. Now, I think, well, I'll get into expectations at the end. Let's do that. I'll get into our expectations that I think are reasonable for us at the end in order for, because there's a lot riding on James Gladstone, Liam Cohen, and Travis Hunter. Making such a blockbuster trade like that, I love it because it shows aggressiveness, but again, it does put a lot of pressure on them to produce this season. So let's get down to the brass tacks and let's look at this Jacksonville Jaguars schedule. So first, we have week 1 versus the Panthers. I've seen some people pick us to lose this game. That's not going to happen. We're going to beat the Panthers on week 1. Let's just make that very, very clear. The Panthers are going to lose to the Jacksonville Jaguars on week 1 of the NFL season. I'm not going to say it's not going to be close. I'm glad Bryce Young is doing a lot better. If this game was in Charlotte, I probably would have stayed up there just so I could see it. I might see it here in Jacksonville. Only thing is, it is very hot in September, so we will see. But now that I live in Jacksonville, I'm a lot closer, so you might even see me at some of the training camps. We'll see. But for this game, we're going to win. I don't think there's any other way to look at it or view it. We're going to win. The Panthers' defense, and mainly because the Panthers' defense still isn't there. They don't really have anyone that can help you get a stop. And they're going to have some rookies that are trying to come on, but in the first week of the season, this is going to be a win for the Jaguars. I think it's going to be a great test to see our offense, play. Again, the Carolina defense isn't like a good litmus test, but it'll be a good chance for us to play against them. And I think Bryce Young will do better. I think it could be close, but this is not a win for the Carolina Panthers. This is a win for the Jacksonville Jaguars. Next up, week 2, we have the Cincinnati Bengals. This one I have a loss. So right now the Jaguars are 1-1. I have us losing to the Cincinnati Bengals. They're just in a different class. They brought back Jamar Chase and T. Higgins. Now I will say, if Trey Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart don't get resolved by this game, I think there's something there. Because if you combine that with the fact that the Bengals don't always start off the season too hot, and if Trey Hendrickson continues his holdout until the regular season, and Shamar Stewart continues it, it might take until week 2 after they lose to the Jaguars for the Bengals to resolve those contract situations so they don't lose any more games. So because of the Bengals mismanaging of contracts, this might end up, it's perfect that it's at the beginning of the season, because I almost wish it was the first game, but not really. But it's perfect that it's at the beginning of the season because this gives us a chance to maybe snatch one from a team that's better than us on paper, but is currently being mismanaged with their cold contract situations. So we'll see. If Trey Hendrickson and Shamar Stewart both aren't playing, I like my chances a lot more for that game. But again, can we keep up? And can our run game keep the ball out of Joe Burrow's hands? That's going to be the question for that one. But again, officially, I have it as a loss. We are 1-1. Next, we have the Texans coming to Everbank Stadium. This one, I think we're going to end up splitting the series with the Texans. And so I'm going to give each home team the win. In 2024, it was flopped. We won at their stadium and they won at ours. So, but that same season, the Texans came in week 3 and embarrassed us with CJ Stroud. I don't think we're going to let that happen again. I think that still is bad taste in a lot of mouths of Jaguars fans and the team. So we're going to be ready and we're going to play them hard and we're going to win. So that's going to be, we're 2-1, beating the Texans once, and I think they'll take the other one as it comes on. So 2-1. Next, we go to the San Francisco 49ers. This one is tough because I would like to pick a win here because their defense got gutted. But Kyle Shanahan just has such a great scheme. And I still think they still got Nick Bosa. They still got Fred Warner. That's still a tough team, right? They still have Brandon Ayuk hasn't played as well, and the 49ers did not do as well. And again, they didn't really do a whole lot, but I still have us taking a loss here. This one, you hope for it, but I have us taking a loss here. So now we're 2-2, right? 2-2. And I think it's pretty good for the first 4 weeks of the season. And I think it's reasonable to expect 2-2. Maybe we lose to the Bengals and the Texans, but beat the Niners. Or, like I said, I could see some of these games going either way. But 2-2 is not a bad expectation for the beginning of the season. Next, we have the Chiefs on Monday Night Football. I'm going to go on my soapbox here because teams that, if you don't get a lot of primetime games because you're a small town team, the hurdles you have to overcome in order to get another primetime game is absolutely ridiculous. Like in the year where we had 2 primetime games, we had them against the Bills and the Ravens, 2 of the best teams in the league. And we got blown out, and everybody's like, oh, that's why you shouldn't have the Jaguars in primetime because they'll get blown out. Well, you put them against the best teams in the league. Like, we're against the best teams in the league. And now here it is Monday night against the Chiefs, who went to the Super Bowl last season. So I don't think it's going to be a blowout. I think we can keep it close, but I do have that as a loss. And again, the narrative will be like, yep, Jaguars losing primetime. And it's like, well, again, there are other teams that are facing the Jets in primetime. There are other teams that are facing, but when you have a team that's looked at as bad, you got to have the one bad team and the one good team. And it's like, you could have put our matchup against the Texans in primetime. That would be a good one. That would be a good one that we could potentially win. But no, it's got to be the Chiefs. So we're going to be stuck in a perpetual cycle of losing our primetime games because the NFL sees us as the bad team that they have to put up against. So we'll see. Maybe that'll be a chip on our shoulder to maybe snatch one, but I have it as a loss. We're going to be 2-3 at this point. Seahawks, I think, will be a get-right spot. It's at home. I think it makes a difference if it was in Seattle, but because it's at home, I can comfortably say I think we're going to win. The Seahawks do have a lot of weapons. Jackson Smith and Jigba, as well as Cooper Kupp. They added some pieces, but really the Seahawks are going to fly as high as Sam Darnold. It's just that simple. And last year when Sam Darnold had Justin Jefferson at his disposal, he dropped only 12 points on us. Let's remember, he only put up 12 points against us last year when he had Justin Jefferson. And we only put up 7, and we were playing with Mac Jones. It's safe to say I don't think Sam Darnold's in as good as a situation in Seattle as he was in Minnesota. It's going to require a lot more of him because he doesn't have an otherworldly receiver in Justin Jefferson to draw coverages and things. So I think I can comfortably say if Sam Darnold could only put 12 points on us when he had Justin Jefferson, I think it's hard to say that he put up more than that or enough to win against us when he's with Seattle. And again, their weapons are not as good as Minnesota's. So that's a win for us. It may not be comfortable, might be tight, but we're going to win because I don't think Sam Darnold is him. And again, we already proved that we could limit him at least. And all we got to do is limit him, and I think that'll end up being a win. So now we are 3-3. So a lot of the season so far has been back and forth. Win, lose, win, lose. And then we lost again, and then we won. So now we're back at 3-3. But then we get to week 7, Rams. I have this one as a loss. It's going to be tough because it's a homecoming party kind of for James Gladstone and Liam Cohen. And I do think we're copying a lot of the Rams philosophies, kind of like screw those picks. If we have a chance to get generational talent, we'll do it. And kind of the mentality of having that 5-star approach where like the Rams had like Stafford, it was Kupp, I think it was Woods or someone else, and then Ramsey and Darnold, and that was like their Super Bowl, like built it around those 5 guys for their Super Bowl run. And I think we're doing kind of a similar thing with Lawrence, Bryant Thomas Jr., Travis Hunter, Josh Hines Allen, and the last spot, it just depends on if it's like Trayvon Walker or if another defensive player emerges. I think that's the idea for us. And it's nice because, one of our 5 stars, Travis Hunter, plays both positions. So it's kind of like having 6, even though it's only 5. So like those are guys that I think are going to get extended over and over again, and we're going to make the cap space to keep them. But I say all that to say, I still think the Rams did a phenomenal job building this roster off of James Gladstone's excellent drafting, and they will beat us because they have a lot of really good players at really cheap positions, and it's a very young, ascending team. And I think the Rams are going to be in a fantastic spot to draft a rookie quarterback next year and just keep it going. So I have us taking a loss in London. We are now 3-4. Week 8 bye week. It would have been nice if it was a little bit later, but there are some people with their bye weeks as early as week 5. So, should be grateful, right? So week 8, get a chance to get right, kind of clear the mind. Week 9, we're at the Las Vegas Raiders. I don't think the Raiders are going to beat us. I think Ashton Genty is going to play well. I think Geno Smith is going to do what he can. But I don't know. The Raiders defense, like Max Crosby and Christian Wilkins are threats on the inside, but where are their linebackers and their safeties? They just lost Trevin Moehrig, and who are their cornerbacks? You got all these questions in the secondary, and with Travis Hunter and Brian Thomas Jr., they're going to get torched. So I think we'll scheme up some good protection to protect us from that line, and I think their offense will be functional, but I think once you take away Brock Bowers, if you're able to take away the run game and Brock Bowers, which I know is 2 things, so it's not exactly easy, who's Geno Smith throwing to, right? So, again, I don't think it'll be as easy as it seems, and I don't think the Raiders are going to be a terrible team, but we will beat them. We are now 4-4. Week 10 versus the Houston Texans. This one is, I'm going to have the Texans winning, so we're going to end up being 4-5. We've been splitting with the Texans for, last season when we were healthy. And so I think I have a splitting with here again. So again, maybe they'll win at our stadium, we'll win at theirs, but I would prefer if we get that win early in the year because that'll kind of help set the tone for us. So it's very important. Like I'd rather us win that game, and I think that's more important for us to win that game home than it is for us to win this one here. So this one will end up going to the Texans. So now we are 4-5. 4-5. Now this is the first time in the season where we will have the second time where we'll have back-to-back losses because we're going to go play the Chargers on the West Coast at 1 p.m. And I think we're going to end up losing. Jim Harbaugh has completely turned that team around, and so we'll end up being 4-6. But I will say, Trevor Lawrence kind of has Justin Herbert's number. Justin Herbert hasn't beaten Trevor Lawrence yet. First time they went head-to-head, Trevor took him out 38-10. Second time we went head-to-head, Trevor overcame bad calls and 3 picks to win 30-27 in the playoffs. So again, and this one's at home too. The Chargers are coming to us. I'll probably actually be at this game. So I think there's a good chance that we could beat the Chargers. Now, again, I will officially have it as a loss because I think on paper they are the better team. But little things like that, hey. So we're 4-6. Now we're at week 12 versus the Arizona Cardinals. This one I have us as a win. I think the Cardinals are making a lot of the right moves. I think drafting Will Johnson was huge. I think he's going to be great for them. But I didn't realize he had as many injury concerns. So I kind of wish we were playing this game a little bit earlier in the season because I think the Cardinals are a team that's going to get better as they get healthier and get more, glued together. So this one I have us winning though. Because I don't think he may not even be ready by this point, which is why he went in the second round. And so we will now be 5-6 after facing the Cardinals. Now here towards the end of the season, we have a chance to do some nice things. We get the Titans in week 13. Now again, kind of wish this game was earlier in the season where Cam Ward was still getting his bearings. But Tennessee is not going to find him a brand new offensive line by week 13. And I'm giving Dan Moore $84 million when he gave up 12 sacks last year is crazy. And I think Josh Allen is going to eat him for lunch. I think that's what's going to happen there. So I think we're going to win in week 13. So now we're back at 6-6. And I think Cam Ward will be good. Don't get me wrong. I think next season they might end up splitting a game with us. But they're just not there yet. All the weapons they added, they haven't been able to come together, and they're just not really there. We swept the Titans 2 or 3 seasons in a row, and it feels great. 22, we swept them. 23, we didn't sweep them because that's why we didn't make the playoffs. We almost did. And then 24, we swept them. So I'm calling at least a win here. And again, I think Cam Moore will be good, but he's just not there yet. Week 14, Indianapolis Colts. Again, unless they have a new quarterback, which they will not. I don't think Daniel Jones or Anthony Richardson is going to beat us. I think, remember last year, we lost to the Colts. Joe Flacco beat us. And Joe Flacco knows how to beat us. He did it with the Browns. He did it with the Colts. They don't have Joe Flacco anymore, unless they bring him back, but I think he'll be playing for the Browns again. So we're going to beat the Colts here. Now we're going to be 7-6 because also this game is at Everbank Stadium. The Colts don't win at Everbank. And I think it's good for us to have the game here be at Everbank Stadium because that'll help us keep the momentum driving through this next little section. The New York Jets are going to be coming to Everbank Stadium at a game I will definitely be at. It's in December, so the temperature is going to be great. And again, this is going to be another win for the Jaguars. We're going to head to 8-6 because the Jets, Justin Fields is going to do his thing, and I think Garrett Wilson is good and Sauce Gardner, but just overall as a team, they just don't have the juice. I mean, I know Aaron Rodgers and Devontae Adams beat us last year, but again, we had Mac Jones playing. So, and I think by this time, Travis Hunter is really going to be coming into his own. So this is a great time for us to get hot. Now, the Broncos are going to put a little bit of a stop to this. I don't think there's a way we beat them. I think the Broncos are quietly morphing into one of the best teams in the NFL because of that crazy defense and how Bo Nix put together a phenomenal rookie campaign. So we're going to be 8-7. That's the loss to the Broncos. Next, we close at the next game. We have the Indianapolis Colts. We'll be traveling to them in Week 17. I think at this point, the Colts will be vying for top picks and wondering if they want to draft another quarterback. So there's not going to be a lot for them to play for. So I think we end up sweeping the Colts pretty easily again. Well, I won't say easily, but we end up sweeping the Colts. We're going to win at Lucas Oil Stadium. That's going to make us 9-8. And then Week 18 versus the Tennessee Titans. The time is to be determined, which I don't really know why, because there's no way this game is going to be a battle for a playoff spot. So, like, why is there any debate on when it should be played? Or, like, if you want our last game of the seasons to be like us versus the Texans or us versus the Chargers, maybe that would be interesting. But against the Titans, now it's going to be us fighting to try to get into the playoffs, right? So we have a lot to play for. But again, the Titans will just be really playing for Cam Moore's development. Now, hopefully this won't be like when the Colts faced us at the end of 2021 in Trevor Lawrence's rookie year, and he was able to play spoiler, because the Titans will probably be feeling like, oh, we can play spoiler, and they did this to us in 2023. So to me, this is a test to see if the culture has changed. Are we going to allow them to play spoiler or not? And the answer is going to be no. You're not keeping us from the playoffs. So we're going to beat the Titans and go 10-7 on the season. That is my record prediction for the Jacksonville Jaguars. I have us going 10-7. And I think we should all expect as fans a winning record. I think there's a lot of range of outcomes, but I think if we end up with as far as expectations goes, I think if we end up with a losing record, it's going to be seen as the trade for Travis Hunter was a fail. I think if we end up with I think we should expect to have a winning record. I wish we could say tied. If we get to 8 wins, I think we should expect 8 wins. And I think that will be the only way that it kind of looks like, okay, it's undetermined yet. Like, he had an impact. We're able to win some more games because of him, but it's still up in the air. Won't really know who really won Browns versus whether that trade was really the right move, right? That'll be a little bit more ambiguous. So I would say, like I said, if there was a way to go 8-8, but there's not. But 8 wins, I think, would get it. And I think fans should reasonably expect 8 to 10, maybe 11 wins. I think anything over 9-8, I think if we make the playoffs, the trade will be instantly seen as a success, because that means our pick will drop from and if we can win a playoff game, even better, but that's what takes it from the teens to the 20s. And if we make the playoffs, that trade was a success, because the reason will be Travis Hunter got us into the playoffs, and it ended up moving our pick from maybe 9 overall to 22nd overall. And giving up, and those are very different first round picks to give up, right? So that will make the trade, and Gladstone. That will make it be a sprawling win, and we'll probably be in euphoria. And if you look at the schedule, making the playoffs is not that complicated. The only question is, again, I think it's going to be hard for us to get to 11 wins. So the only question is, how many games are the Texans going to win? And the Texans would have to blow a couple of games in order to end up at 10-7. Now their schedule is harder. They have to face the Bills. They have to face the Ravens. We don't, right? But the Texans, even if they drop those games, if the Texans go 10-7, we end up winning the division. But if the Texans end up going 11-6, they end up winning the division, of course. If we go 11-6, I'm not sure. So it kind of depends on the Texans and how well do they end up doing this year. And they made some really interesting, strange moves in getting rid of their left tackle for Laramie Tunsil. And I guess either hoping that Cam Robinson still has it, and a bunch of young guys that they have in their offensive line. And so we'll see. I mean, last season they didn't do as well, even though they got Stephon Diggs up in there. I will say their secondary has consistently gotten better because they just either signed, drafted a safety. They got CJ Gardner-Johnson. So their secondary will still be one of the best in the league, right? It's still going to be very hard to throw on that team. And their defense, I think, is still going to be very good. And then their offense, it just kind of depends on how fast those rookie receivers catch up. So I think those are going to be tough tests, and I think the Texans are a team to look out for. But I also think that they're vulnerable, and they've shown that by losing to the Jets last year. There's a lot of games that they've lost that's kind of like, why did they lose? And it's hard to pinpoint it because on paper they're good, but I think it all comes back to their offensive line. It's just not as cohesive as I thought it would be. So some of the I'll go ahead and highlight some of the trap and maybe could go either way games. I'll say that the Cardinals is a game that we could lose, right? The Cardinals are an up and coming team. Kyler Murray, he's very hard to get down. That's a game that we could lose, right? I have it as a win, but it's a game that we could lose. But the Chargers is a game that we could win because, again, for some reason, Trevor Lawrence just knows what to do against the Chargers when Justin Herbert's playing. And then another game, the 49ers could be a win. I mean, they've lost a lot of players. They've lost a lot of players and didn't really replace them. And I think the Bengals could also be a win. I have it as a loss, but you can't tell me the Jaguars don't have a chance if Shamar Stewart and Trey Hendrickson both aren't on the field. And then another potential loss would be, I think there's a better chance of the Titans beating us than the Colts, honestly. But the Colts have a really good secondary. But other than that, I see in maybe the Seahawks, but I really don't see it. I see a lot more potential for us to flip-flop and get more wins than we're projected to get than to get more losses, right? Because I think the Cardinals could beat us, and I think the Cardinals could beat us, maybe the Titans and maybe the Texans sweep. But also I think we have a reasonable chance to beat the Bengals, the 49ers, and the Chargers. So it's kind of a 3-3 split if you look at it, so I think 10-7 is not unrealistic. And I think if we go 10-7 and the Texans end up dropping a game, an important one, and again, they have a tougher schedule, we could see ourselves making the playoffs. And I think if we make the playoffs, this trade is a success. But the only way to going 10-7 will not get us into the playoffs because the AFC is absolutely nasty out there. It is nasty. So let me know your thoughts. Do you think that the Jaguars are going to, end up doing well? How's the schedule prediction look for you? And of course, never forget, it was always the Jags.